Good morning, and we are live now. This is Grant Adlam from KZN Top Business, and we have the KZN Top Business Masterclass today. Today, we've got an incredible subject that we'll be covering, and that is on communication within the corporate environment, which has changed drastically over the last 2 years with COVID and all the things that we've had. People now operating from home, doing things that they never used to do, which weren't the normal, are now normal. So we've got an incredible panel that we put together, which is with Natalie and Zama and Cecilia will be with us just now. And I'm going to hand over to Natalie, and basically I'm going to let people just introduce themselves. You see Natalie, Zama, hello everybody.
Hi, morning, everyone. Thank you, Grant.
So Natalie, you take the floor, and then Zama can come in, and when Cecilia gets her technical hitches right, we can pull her into the meeting as well. But Natalie, go for it.
Okay. All right. Morning, everybody. I'm Natalie Keegan. I'm a communications specialist. I've got plus minus 25 years experience in corporate. I've recently redirected my career, and I've gone into business, and I've partnered with Zama Luthuli, Everest Strategic Communications, and I'm going to head up the KZN branch. We had our official launch on the 6th of April, so we've hit the ground running. Today, we're focusing on the future of employee communication, and we welcome everybody who is on the call to share their experiences with us as we take you through our view of employee engagement. And I'll hand you over to Zama. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Good morning, Grant, Cecilia, and to the audience. What a great topic today that we're discussing on employee communication, employee engagement. But firstly, let me introduce myself. I'm Zama Luthuli, and I'm the founder, CEO of Chief of Everything at Everest Strategic Communications, a company founded in 2020, right before COVID started. So that was February when we started the business. And in March already, the company was in lockdown, and everything that I knew from my corporate days, 20 years, sort of out the window, because now there was a new normal, working from home, something we'd never experienced at the time. And what a worst time to start a business, but also challenging, but equally exciting, because, you know, I didn't know any better. I hadn't started a business prior to COVID. But, you know, having worked with a few clients, and what we find is that there is a big shift in a focus in employee communications. In public relations, communications departments, we deal a lot with stakeholders. And top of our stakeholder list is usually, in a corporate environment, our employees, our internal stakeholders, starting from the top, the leadership, if you want to dissect it, to your middle management, to all employees and contractors on site, and your service providers that are on site. Those are all unions as well, and those are all your internal stakeholders. But how do we then communicate with them? What's important? What has shifted? What has changed? I remember in my corporate days that I spent 20 years in corporate. But if there was a problem with low morale, high turnover, low productivity, companies not meeting targets, management will look for solutions and try to find where the problem is. And oftentimes, one of the problems will be identified as lack of communication. There's no communication in this organization. And, you know, the communications team will then take the blame, obviously equally with HR. Then we want to do more newsletters, we want to do more sessions and visos and this and this and that. And it just seemed like a never ending task, you know, that you would partake in an organization. But what we see now is companies are focusing more on employee engagement, and really you cannot talk employee engagement without talking culture. And really the conversation centers around culture, it centers around values in an organization. HR is a big partner for the communications team when it comes to employee engagement, because we cannot do it alone. And it's put a spin on how we communicate, with employees and what solutions we come up with. We're seeing a big shift in digital communications, agile communications. One of my clients uses WhatsApp to communicate with their employees. But also what we've seen, and what's more important, is that, how can I put it, that personal touch, where employees just want to be understood. They want to talk about their personal experiences. Everyone's been through a lot. Some of us have had COVID. Some of us have been affected, impacted by the pandemic and our families. And there's a lot in our headspace. So I'm not thinking targets. I'm thinking about my personal issues. I mean, you would attest if you look at LinkedIn. If you post a personal story, that gets more traction because people are into stories. They're into what's happening in each other's lives. So it's no more about corporate talk and corporate this and corporate that. We've become more empathic. We're becoming more people again, rather than that communication, the posters, the newsletter. We still have those things, but it's more personal touch. So I don't want to talk a lot. I've got Natalie, we've got Cecilia, who's going to share some of the experiences that they've implemented at Exxaro. And maybe at this point, Grant, let me pause and allow Natalie to just unpack a few trends. And as I've said, you will see whatever we're talking about, the conversation here really centers around the cultural journey in an organization and how employee engagement and communication is a strategic pillar for that culture journey in an organization. Natalie.
Okay, thanks, Zama. So basically what we've all noted is that we've had a shift from the traditional way of communicating, which is, like Zama said, the newsletters, printed newsletters, printed posters. So we've shifted from your traditional communication tools to digital transformation. So I've selected, from doing my research and benchmarking with other companies, to unpack, there's basically 5 communication trends that I think are highlighted for 2022. And like Zama mentioned, obviously that personal safety, and I know that social safety, Cecilia is going to offer one of her experiences, but having instant access to information. Employees are on social media most of the time. They have mobile first apps, etc. So they want whatever we communicate with them, let's send them the links to everything. So whether it be on WhatsApp, whether it be on an email, have the links ready for them to open and read. Otherwise, it'll just get put into the, I don't know if you could say, the delete box or your, but it's best to just have all that information available to them. And then obviously adequate content distribution. So have the newsletters, obviously HR will distribute the newsletters, campaign material, but your marketing teams are producing the educational and engaging content. So that is your videos, your infographics, your success stories, ebooks. Use a different platform, have those tools or infrastructure available to share with employees, to have them engaged, have their buy-in, so that whatever the message is that your business and organization want them to be aware of, you've provided them with the tools. So obviously they're going to be engaged, they're going to buy into whatever it is that you need them to do, and obviously you've got more productivity. And then the third one being your mobile first communication. Again, like I said, that's all your apps. A lot of companies, especially corporates, have implemented and made available. Obviously the infrastructure has to be available. Employees have to have smartphones. Having these mobile apps specifically for their companies, where employees can be, where awareness can be created for employees, and whatever they need to communicate will be on these platforms. And then personalized communication, again, with reference to what Zama said, a lot we see on LinkedIn, a lot of stories are being shared and they're getting a lot of traction. So it's a win-win situation if you make communications with your employees more personalized, get them to share their stories with us instead of spamming them with irrelevant messages just because we feel there's a need to communicate. And then the fifth one, and I think it's something we all have to be very aware of, and that is the visual storytelling. So in the last 2 years, it's definitely been a welcome to the visual world. So it's not so much that we don't want to see company newsletters, it's just how we now communicate them, as in it's electronic. But we still need to find these platforms that will be available to all employees. It's difficult in some situations, but social media, like I said, infographics with pictures is very much the way forward. I think at this stage, if we can maybe ask or hand over to Cecilia to introduce herself and share her experiences from her space. Cecilia, thank you very much for being part of our panel, and I'd like to hand over to you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Yes, from my perspective, my background is I've been in communications and stakeholder engagement for the last 26 years. For the last 11 years, I've been in mega projects at Exxaro, and it's a total different environment. You work with 99% of the employees that's normally on your project is non-permanent employees. They consist of service providers, contractors, labor brokers. So your communication channels and messages and things needs to be targeted and also be refined to the project deliverables and outcomes. We do work very closely with corporate, so we align to the values of Exxaro. The project itself, they normally start out with a new team, meaning they onboard different team members for different type of job descriptions that needs to be fulfilled. So you'll have disciplines in the project engineering, you'll have project controls, you'll have safety, you'll have HR, a small IR, ER, you'll have your construction teams. So it's a different type of employee that you put together, and the engagements that you then target for the project is also then different. So what we normally do is we start on putting the team together, and then from putting the team together, we then start on different ways of clarifying roles and responsibilities. There's normally a storming and a norming and a forming process that happens. There's a code of conduct. We also then roll out resilience programs, creating social safety within the teams, that they also take extreme ownership. So there's quite a lot of things that will happen within the team to get the team up to where you can say your team is now ready to execute and to start working on on the project deliverables. With pre-COVID, we had a team that was highly resilient. They worked together, they had the social safety in their different teams. And when COVID started, that definitely made a big difference on how they continued working within the new way of working. There was check-ins, there was buddy systems. The work outputs was immediately put together. People knew what they need to do, although they were sitting at home, still feeling valued, still delivering, because there was a big thing on losing their jobs. Are they going to lose their job? They're not permanent employees. We're on the project. We were the only projects, construction projects in South Africa on the Exxaro side that was continuing working through the COVID. which was a big thing as well. And we're not just on the project, we also have to look at the contractors' employees, because remember, we've got contractors that execute different things on the construction side. So we also had to tailor our communication, especially the COVID return to work. We were also aligned to the Department of Minerals. So there was a lot of legal requirements. And then you also had the COVID requirements. So all those things had to be packaged into a proper COVID communication awareness campaign, which we then did. And so we had a return to work campaign. When they were back at work, we had the actual awareness campaign, making sure, all your compliances with COVID. And then continuing from there, all the phases of COVID, having vaccinations done, and then also now still continuing, changing the work now from virtual work to mostly of the people return to work, and there's still people working hybridly. So that's also a challenge of the employee engagement, is how you engage with that to make sure when they come back to work, if they are engaged.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Cecilia.
Cecilia. If I may come in, I quite like your example there of, I've noted the question on the chat group. I think Natalie will attend to that question, but I just wanted to pick up on the case example that Cecilia is bringing to the discussion about employees that are mainly your contractors, your service providers, but are on site. I mean, we're talking corporates, whether it's a mining environment, and making sure that in our communication solutions, culture, values, reconnect sessions are included, valued, and their values and their views are heard. Because really to build brand awareness, to build a reputation of an organization, we all know that it works inside out. It starts with the employees. Previously, more emphasis was put on external communications. We want to be in the papers, etc. And sometimes your staff will read about company news in the newspaper, and we haven't communicated internally. So we're seeing that shift. One other thing I just want to touch on before I hand over to Natalie is that really employee communication for me, it starts at the top. Leadership sets the tone. We say this all the time, but sometimes practically. There's a big role that is played by middle management. And from a communications point of view, one of the key functions we do is to capacitate middle managers to be able to communicate, to be able to be more empathic, obviously working with HR, of course, to their employees, because communications team can be 3-4 people. I mean, communications teams are smaller in some companies, depending on industries. Mining, you have bigger teams, but you've got middle managers that are on the floor with their staff, and the leader that they see every day is that middle manager. And that's where communication training to that layer is quite critical and quite important, because it sets the tone, it drives the culture in the organization.
Sorry, Zama, I just want to answer to you on the management one. So what happened is the project manager for the project decided to go on a team journey for this specific project, to create a culture within the project. So the management team went on a leadership team journey, and that's we got a lot of accolades from that. And the whole thing was to build the best practices in a high performance team, and the values and the principles that supported that was embracing the diversity within the teams, empowering the people to grow, although they're on the project, because we've got a start and an end date, but there's a lot of knowledge and things that you can learn, and the ethical conduct of honesty and respect and trust. So the project management team had a leadership journey that then rippled down to the next level, because we only had like 2 levels. You had the leadership management, and then you had your what you would call your middle management. So that had to go down then to the teams, and that was totally embraced. We also used the Neurozone. Not sure if you are familiar with that, but we used the Neurozone approach for the resilience. The whole team went through a whole Neurozone program as well. And then also the extreme ownership, where the management showed the extreme ownership first by practicing walking the talk, and that was then taken down to the other levels. And everybody, even the contractors on our side, embraced our extreme ownership and our code of conduct. So I agree with you. If the leadership does not embrace it and walk the talk, you're not going to have that success going down.
Natalie?
I agree there. No, I agree, because my next point that I was going to make from personal experiences, in any culture journey, yes, there's a lot that we have to go through to build or improve a culture journey, but respect and clear communication, I think, is pivotal to building those relationships between the employer and your employees. So employee engagement helps build those relationships. Obviously, you will have, well, the end result that any culture journey is improved employee performance, and then you will have long-term organizational sustainability. I'm not sure if this is an opportunity to answer some of the questions, and then, we'll open up the floor, and then we have, some key points that we would like to leave the audience with. But if the panel are happy, we can answer the questions that we have. Can I go ahead?
If I may, Natalie, please share your experiences with us. I mean, it's a journey for all of us in different organizations. You might have a challenge, or you might have implemented something that works for you. Please feel free to share it with the group. I'm sure, Grant, they can raise a hand via this platform and then share with us. It doesn't have to be a question. It can just be a contribution, which we would mostly welcome. So the floor is open.
Yeah. So we have two questions. I don't know if you can see them on your side there. But the one is managing digital access. The range of employees, how do you do it, which is critical. So I don't know who wants to take that one.
I'm happy to. I suppose, Cecilia, you and I could possibly answer that from our experience over the last 2 years.
Yeah. You do yours first, and then I'll answer.
I know Grant Putwi or Gail, who asked the question. From experience, I know that employees, once they came onto site, they were offered, they had the opportunity to sign into a Wi-Fi or have access to company Wi-Fi during their working hours. They were not given data allocations for after hours, but I know that they did have access during working hours. So that whatever platform the company offered the employees to access information, they could do it during their time at work. I hope that answers your question.
Just from a project perspective, it's different because it's just not like I said, the employees are not physically our employees, and when we created this culture for the GG6 project team, they actually embraced it. So from their side, all the rules and regulations with regards to accessing social media and things, there was Wi-Fi for the team on site. Contractors had to provide it for their own employees, because we're not responsible for them. But the way of how we did the digital access, and also is we had an app. We've got an app, Exxaro app, Let's Connect. So if you wanted to put something out to everybody wider than the project, we would have used the Let's Connect, because even the contractors could access it. It was data free. Within the project, we had our own WhatsApp group. We had it was the dedicated communication desk. All communication went through one channel, and it was through my desk. And then, you know, that's the data. I think it's access and data is not something that was a problem on our side. The question for social safety is if you don't have social safety, your team will not be performing. So our Neurozone resilience drive that we had created that social safety, and we did it in smaller team interventions. So we took the actual pockets of the teams within the project, and we did those sessions within those teams. So they created their own social safety within their own environment, and that spread to the wider team. And the management was also the leader of showing social safety, sharing things. And I think that also was one of the big things that helped us when COVID hit us. There was already social safety people could put up their hand and say something and know they're not going to be judged, or there will be issues surrounding them. It's social safety. If there's no social safety, you will not have performance within your team.
Are there any other questions from anybody else out there? Wanted some questions that want? I see some people have put some through to me. Digital access and range for employees seems to be one that's come through on my cell phone. Comes under that.
Grant, just on the digital access, what we also did is we put up screens, and we made little video clips or message clips that went onto WhatsApp that could be sent to anybody's phone, you know, if there was something that we wanted to target it. So that was the digital access, or the digital things that we used was basically WhatsApp, which is a great tool to use, and then also the screens. And we also had a specific trailer that was equipped with TVs that we took around the construction site, because remember, we're in the construction site. That was taken to toolbox talks in the mornings, and people that could not, you have people that cannot read. So those people were also then included in that. So your communication for digital reached all levels.
Yeah, so I've come across that quite often, where people have started the WhatsApp group or any form of that communication, which is absolutely brilliant. But how do you handle it when people have got problems with data and stuff like that? How do you tackle something like that?
Grant, so from our side, like I said, on the actual sites we had Wi-Fi, you know, if you were close, you know, and then on the contractor side, normally, you know, they should have Wi-Fi, because otherwise they cannot work with networks on site. You know, it's temporary structures and things that's put in place. So we didn't experience that. The only thing that we had to monitor was any social media messaging that goes outside of the project into the external community. So and there we had a practice in place. You know, only a communication that I sent out was communication that if it goes outside the environment, it was okay. If not, it was only shared with specific target audiences, not with everybody. So you also need to look at that, because that's part of your company's reputation that you need to manage. So those things are also very critical.
Yeah, no, that would be.
Grant, we have a comment from Femada. Thank you, Femada, for that comment. Just to reiterate that not all staff have access to smartphones or data is an issue, and we need to respect that, you know, from a communications point of view, as we implement all these innovative digital platforms, and make sure that from a corporate point of view, we do cater, unlike what Femada says, that they use SMS bundles to get critical information to staff. So thank you for that input. Please keep inputs, ideas, thoughts coming. But one of the things that we find with these new ways of work is boundaries. There's issues of mental health, there's issues of wellness. You know, there's people are on teams from 7 o'clock until 7 at night. There's communication department is pushing out content. there's so many things that we juggle. And I find that in working with some of my clients, it's something that as communicators, we need to be also mindful of. Just, boundaries, the trends in mental wellness of employees, and sometimes even showing people's faces on screen. Sometimes one of my clients said that's a mental to not show my face is a wellness issue for me. I don't want to show my face. I want to be on mute and not show my screen. So you just learn. I mean, we're learning as we go post-COVID in terms of communication trends, what works, what doesn't work. And we are very happy to hear inputs from the floor. Juanita has a question. Natalie?
Okay, there's a question. I see, sorry, there was one from Gail just before Juanita saying, apart from social safety, how do you foster a culture of upward feedback from employees to managers? Cecilia, I'm not sure if you can go back to your example of having the communication desk. And I think that is something that we all have experience of, where employees could or use as a platform to share any of the issues that they had, and then how you filtered that back to your leadership. If you could come in there for us.
Okay, so what we had is we had the communication desk where, we also within the teams, I sat in with the teams, when they had their relevant caucuses, I normally sat in there observing and getting the undertone of, what is happening, picking up things there that can be communicated. Then also things that specific where the employees wanted to have their voice done, they would have sent it through to either the comms desk, or they also had because they had the social safety, they could elevate it within the team. And normally with those things, topics that come out for communication or for activities that could happen to address certain things. Just to give you an example, code of conduct. We some of our site supervisors or team members, they had to work with contractors, and then normally the contractors, when you have discussions, it's normally sometimes it gets a little bit heated, and then to stay within the mind frame of applying your code of conduct, so that the whole relationship doesn't go left. That was also used as well, where they had tips and tools of how to conduct themselves. And suggestions. We had a coffee chat with the teams once a month. We just had informal coffee chat, sit down with them. They bring their coffee. There's no PowerPoint. There's no agenda, nothing. And they would sit with the project manager. He will be involved with the leadership, and they will then discuss things. And people were quite freely to say their things. But also taking consideration things coming from the contractors as well. It was normally put into forums or meetings and then brought to the attention of leadership, where we then would have channeled it through the comms desk, or address it through an activity or a campaign if it was a larger thing.
We almost come to the end of the hour. It goes so quickly because the topic is just so huge. We could sit and talk about it all day. So I don't know if you want to quickly try and answer the last two questions on the screen, and then we can wrap it up after that. So,
okay, for Juanita's question, she asked how do you handle offsite communication issues, and were there any issues that you came into, and how did you handle that, especially where personal costs were involved? I think just from experience, Juanita, employees that worked offsite, I think were given laptops, but you're working offsite at your own expense. I don't have any experience where it was a choice. You either worked on site or you worked offsite, but you were given the infrastructure or the tool to be able to do your job. But I don't have any experience where they were given any additional, where costs were involved, where those were paid for the employees.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers.
That's from our side, we did enable all the team members with a dongle. Even though some of the service providers ensured that all the employees had access to, had all the screens and the tools that they need at home. From the project itself, we also made sure that as far as we could, we assisted the team members with the equipment that they needed. And then also we had an industrial psychologist on our team, and she checked in with all the team members on a regular basis during COVID, having personal coaching sessions with them, understanding their challenges, what's happening at home, and addressing those things, and that helped a lot as well. And then also we had the teams had their own working schedules, where they would say some will only start at 9 o'clock because of the moms, they needed to get the children sorted out. Other people would start at different times. They worked it out themselves, and it worked. As long as the goals and deliverables was achieved, it was not an issue. So and there was a lot of heartache and problems in COVID times. So I think the support that was given from our side definitely strengthened the team.
Thank you. And then we have a comment from Titipana. It says a tool which helped enhance our internal communications, especially during the first few months of COVID, was SnapComms, which sends messages via mobile, desktops, monitors, tickers, and as many other functionalities. And she's from Astron Energy. Thank you very much for that. I will definitely go and have a look at that myself now. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we should call it a day, because on this positive note, and Natalie and Zama put an article in our latest Business Sense, which if you haven't read it, go online and get a copy of it on KZNTopBusiness.com. But I'm just reading from the article here, and it says basically that employee communication is the glue that holds businesses together. And that in essence is what it is, whether it's old-fashioned communication, the old notice board that's up there, the whiteboard, whatever it might be, using all these comms that we're talking about, it's still that glue. So we just got to hold on to that. We've got a hell of an important role to fill. And it's what makes and breaks companies, morale, all those important things that you've said. So, ladies, what an incredible session we've had. So, Natalie, Zama, and Cecilia, thank you very much. I don't know if you want to say something before we wrap up, but we have wrapped up.
I have a few key takeaways that I'd like to leave our audience with. So in summary, obviously it's increase your employee engagement because that will result in more engaged employees and higher productivity. Create a collaborative work culture. We spoke a lot about that, that embraces diversity and inclusion, but give the employees, it's all good and well to say that we foster a culture that embraces diversity and inclusion, but give employees a platform to also be heard. And then encourage consistent open communication, stay updated with all the trends so that you can stay competitive, respect, communicate, and build those relationships with employees. So that's the key takeaways that we would like to leave you with. Thank you very much. Thank you, Grant, and thank you to the audience that have contributed.
All right, there you go. So thank you for joining us on KZN Business Master Business Classes. It was an absolute pleasure having everybody with us. And we're looking forward to seeing you on the 21st, where we've got an incredible session with Andy that's on LinkedIn and how to involve LinkedIn into your business, which is really, really an incredible subject. So thank you very much for joining us. And we'll speak to you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Grant.
All right. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.